My name is Imelda Richard, and I am the Prison Ministry Coordinator for the Archdiocese of Atlanta. We are going to be saying a prayer to open our today's session. So in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. God, our Maker, we praise you for the gift of community. Thank you for the communities in which we work and live. Thank you for the community that is your body, the Church. Fill us with your Spirit today so that, as one, we reflect your light and love to each other and to the world. In Christ we pray. Amen. CPMC's monthly learning series theme for 2026, Our Shared Mission to Visit the Imprisoned, is a journey reminding us that prison ministry is not a special project for the few, but a shared mission of the whole Church. This summer, we journey through the second part of our theme, Invite. Today, we welcome Sister Ruth Bolarte. Sister Ruth is a member of the Sisters Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary and a nationally recognized leader in intercultural and Hispanic ministry. A native of Peru, she holds a doctorate in ministry from the Catholic University of America and has spent her career building intercultural competence across Catholic communities, including as director of the Office of Cultural Diversity Ministries for the Diocese of Medellin, and leading Hispanic evangelization efforts for the Archdiocese of Philadelphia. She currently serves as an Adjunct Professor at Villanova University and as a pastoral consultant for Renew International. Please feel free to write questions in the chat along the way, and we'll take time to answer them at the end of the presentation. With that, Sister Ruth, welcome.
Hello and greetings. It's a pleasure to be with you here. So as Imelda had said, feel free to send questions, comments through the chat, and then at the end, we'll, I think the format, you're more familiar. I'll be presenting some highlights, and then you'll have a chance to get some questions. So let's start with the PowerPoint, Joshua. So building bilingual intercultural ministries engaging Latino Catholics in this work of prison ministry. Let's just start with the next slide. Let's just start with this intercultural, multicultural. So let's just start a little bit with some language, some vocabulary. Because there's a difference. And I think one of the pieces that hopefully you'll get through is language. It is important. How do we refer to things? So intercultural, multicultural. There in front of you, you have 4 images. At the top, you have the melting pot. That has been an image to manifest our diversity in the United States for many decades. Presented also a salad bowl. In the middle, you have a stew, a chili bowl. There's so many names that you can have in so many different cultures, but I'll keep the image of the stew. And then also there is the image of a mosaic. If we were in person, or if this will be a Zoom meeting or something, I will tell you what is according to those images, what is your vision right now of the ministry that how you of the structure of the ministry, at your local level, in your parish, in your diocese, and so on. When we're talking about living unity and diversity, is it more like a melting pot, the image that many of us perhaps are more familiar in the United States? We are a wonderful melting pot where Chinese, Italian, and so on just live together, and we celebrate that. Or is perhaps a salad bowl, colorful, many ingredients, a mosaic. If one little piece is missing, then we don't have the whole picture. There's something missing. Or in the middle one, a chili bowl. Just for your background, all these images come, yes, from a theological perspective, but also from the science of sociology. And all of them are at this point in many can manifest diversity. How are we living unity in diversity, specifically in the United States? But I also invite you to look at your institution or your group. Is it more of a melting pot? So I'll give you, so again, this will be that time that perhaps put you in dialogue and you choose one. Because I'll give you some characteristics of each one. A melting pot. A melting pot, another image that I like using is also like a milkshake. All these ice creams flavors are all become one, and you cannot distinguish anymore the particular characteristics of each ingredient. In so many ways, they have been blended, and perhaps that's the image that that has been has prevailed for so many for a long time in the United States. Is it still is this image still relevant today? As every image has strengths and limitations. And perhaps every image manifests the reality of living unity and diversity in the United States or in our own institution at different times or in different areas. The salad bowl, that's pretty, all these flavors. The limitation, and it could be done, it could be a reality, but the limitation that it has is that if I don't like croutons, I can take the croutons out. So in so many ways, that will be a limitation of this image. We'll need something else that really is giving us the freedom to choose what I like and what I don't like, who am I more comfortable or not. The mosaic is another one that has been used or continues to be used in order to manifest this unity in diversity. One piece is missing, we don't have the whole picture. The limitation that this one has is that all the blues are together, all the greens are in one side, and so on. And in so many ways, each one has its own little area. And we cannot, we don't mix, we don't dare to go to the area of the green ones and so on. The middle one, a stew, could be any kind of stew, other others, authors, other perspectives have also used the image of the chili bowl. In so many ways, it's an image where we still can recognize the ingredients, the carrots, the parsley, the meat, the potatoes. But in the process of cooking with the fire, all the ingredients have transformed one another. So now the carrot is still a carrot, but it has taken the flavor of the beef, the condiments, the vegetables, and so on. So there has been a process of transformation. Perhaps that will be the image that best reflects being intercultural. So going back, the difference between intercultural and multicultural in the study and today, especially within the church, we use cultural diversity or interculturality because we want a term or an image that manifests in the culture of encounter that perhaps many of us might be familiar with Pope Francis, the culture that I need to engage in dialogue. Multicultural might be more as this salad bowl. Oh yes, it's pretty. We have Asian, Latinos, Europeans, and so on. Pretty salad, but at the same time, we're in our own little space, and perhaps and I don't, I am. It's you might, I'll give you an example in parishes. Sometimes I'm going to speak of Latinos. Latinos, their mass is in the afternoon and they better not put a mass in the morning. So we live, yes, this is a very welcoming parish, a welcoming institution, but let's try not to encounter one another, not to make space. So as I explain a little bit about these images, hopefully I invite you to reflect, is your vision for your local ministry, for your group, for yourself also, is more intercultural or multicultural? And perhaps we have all these realities in our institution. I'm going to say in the institution of the church, we can recognize all these realities. Of course, the idea will be this, that we are transformed with one another because we're engaging in dialogue, the culture of encounter. But perhaps in some areas we might be living more like a mosaic. It's beautiful, different colors, but everybody better stay in their own little space. The blue ones in the blues and the greens with the greens. So just intercultural, multicultural, and some images for you to help you discern where was your own vision or your group, your institution, as we strive to live unity in diversity. The next one, please. So in multicultural groups coexist, and intercultural groups interact, learn from each other, and shape ministry together. And this is the perspective that I'm going to expand about an intercultural ministry. So how are you working toward an intercultural ministry? And next, please. So the Conference of Bishops of the United States in 2014 put a whole program helping us to build these competencies for living this cultural cultural diversity, specifically in a faith context. So I want to no, I'm not some of the principles and resources come from this project that still continues to be relevant. 5 principles that guide us in our intercultural ministry. Articulating a vision of integrity, living this unity in diversity. And that was, if your ministry already has a vision, an articulated vision, perhaps looking at the previous slide with the pictures, review it and look at it. How are we doing? Are we more like this salad board, a mosaic, a stew? Maybe we're more like a melting pot. A melting pot, you're welcome, but we only speak English here. So otherwise, yeah, there's no space for you here. Or you're welcome, but yeah, we control or we limit this hospitality. So what is the vision? When a vision of integrating, a vision of interculturality, acknowledging and affirm diversity as a gift. Many of us, especially also within the Catholic Church, yes, having an intercultural ministry, Latinos, Asians, Vietnamese, it looks beautiful, but it's more work. So and then it's true, it's more work. As I work in my experience, cultural diversity ministry. Of course, I don't speak all the languages, but I had to do a lot of work in order to celebrate the diversity. So the cultural diversity is not a problem to be solved, that it's a challenge. It's a gift, but it's true. This gift is going to require work, from all sides, but especially for those of us who might be in positions of decision making decisions or leadership. Foster the enculturation of the gospel, culture and faith. This principle, I won't be able to expand of it, but I do want you to be aware of it, of enculturation. That is actually is a theological term, and which is the connection of culture and faith. Yes, all of us pray, all of us worship, all of us go to mass, all of us do prison ministry, but how do we relate to the divine might be different. I maybe pray for some of us Latinos, Asians, and so on. We might have specific characteristics in my relationship with the divine. So how are we taking in consideration the enculturation of the good news of the gospel? Plan with the people, not for the people. As you continue looking at your vision, your mission of your group, and I always, in my experience, I really like the first thing I read when I visited parishes, I look at their church bulletin. Church bulletins can say a lot of the parish without me knowing much about the parish. And especially, titles, and especially who's in charge of this or of that. So who is at the table where decisions are being made? And that takes us back to our first slide, at this vision of being intercultural. How are we engaging, especially those that we call minority groups, in the process of decision making? How are we broadening our understanding of ministry, programs, leadership, the open and curious? Here I'm just going to focus leadership. For many of us, perhaps leadership is who is the best speaker, how many credentials. Imelda very kindly, presented my studies and so on. But perhaps for some of us, leadership is who can connect with the people, regardless of certificates or studies or not. So let's just broaden our understanding of concepts that perhaps that we are so used to it. So let's be open to be surprised and curious. And one thing about all throughout this is, of course, we can read about it. Here we are at this webinar. But one of the best approaches is ask. And again, going back to this vision, this culture of encounter. Tell me more about it. Tell me about your experience, or how do you see prison ministry, or how do you see ministry per se? So offer you these 5 principles that I found that are very practical and relevant in intercultural ministry. And next, I'm going to focus now specifically on Latinos, understanding Latinos, Hispanic communities in the USA. Now, I start by the title, and Latino, and I put an A, and I put Hispanic. And there's another title now, Latinx. I didn't even write it there. What should we use? I don't have an answer for that. And so let's start with that. Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, Chicano, Mexican American, Puerto Rican, Peruvian, and so on. Let's just start with that. There's not a one word that can define the identity. For purposes of census and within the church, the term, and again, that changes also depending in the area. Most of my life in the States, I have lived in the northeastern part, is Hispanic. However, might be Latino. And I just want you to bring to your attention that some of us, Latinos, Latinas, maybe react, maybe offended, or may prefer one term better than the other one. Like, I don't want to be Hispanic. The term Hispanic has connections to Spain. For some of us, we don't want anything to do with the history of how Spain came to to Latin America. Puerto Ricans. If you have met people from Puerto Rico, they'll identify as Puerto Rican, even though we know Puerto Rico is obviously part of the United States. So, what's the right term? It's ask and so on. But be aware that there's lately now the Latinx that term is coming, especially in the academia world, is becoming more common because it's more inclusive, gender, and so on. Those of you that are familiar with Spanish always puts a gender to the nouns and so on. Latinos can be bilingual, can speak Spanglish, can speak only English, only Spanish, Spanish as a second language. And there are some Latinos or Hispanics that, like Spanish is their second or third language because we have all the indigenous language of Central America. So just Latinos, Hispanics in the United States are a whole diversity in education, in work, in finances, in race. Often in the United States, we are put into one group, Hispanics. And often is everybody's from Mexico. Just be aware that some of us have to go through that. Perhaps not so much, even younger generations, second and third generations here in the United States. So just to be aware that all these issues have impact identity, cultural identity, or identity in the United States. As we move forward, some of the cultural values of among Latinos, family, respect, very hierarchical sometimes, the personal, relational, and going back to the inculturation lives an incarnated spirituality, finding God in the daily life, finding God in the daily life. Spirituality, my relationship with God needs to be manifested very tangible with statues, with pictures, with dialogue, and so on. And next, please. So in these spiritual traditions that resonate for many strongly in prison ministry, for those who are detained or for those who are ministering, devotion to Our Lady of Guadalupe, sacramentals, processions, communal scriptures, a strong belief in forgiveness, hope, second chances, lo cotidiano, finding God in daily life. And as you can say, all these characteristics, of course, often we're going to recognize this within the Latinos in the United States. That doesn't mean that every Latino is going to fulfill all this. I want to be aware of that. And with this, I just want to call your attention also to there was a whole process of synodality, of dialogue in the church in the United States that started in 2018. I was very happy to be part of it, but I just want you to, the process has finished, but now they are at the stage where there's implementation at a local level, diocesan. But regarding prison ministry per se, I wanted to share some of the findings that they were found about this dialogue at a national level among Latinos. General lack of understanding of the laws and criminal justice systems, something as what prison, jail, and detention. What is the difference? Families continue to maintain communication with those incarcerated. So what is the families are in need of pastoral care? The detained are afraid of being abandoned and left to die without the accompanying of the church. So just sharing some of the findings of this national dialogue regarding specifically prison ministry. Next, please. Some of the barriers that may prevent some to volunteer, language and communication gaps. even bilingual parishioners. So when I teach, and I always say, I know I speak English with an accent, and guess what? I also speak Spanish with an accent. So some of us in this piece might feel like some communication gaps. Perception of prison ministry, not for people like me, due to lack of representation, lack of opportunities, mentorship, sometimes work schedules, immigration concerns, of course. Even if I will be documented, but I have to say, unfortunately, in the United States, yes, the spirit that we're living there, past experiences with authority and institutions that may create hesitation. Next, please. So what are some practical ways? I wanted to give you some practical ways. Encourage, share leadership, mutual learning, joint prayer experiences, plan with the people, now for the people. I think we have an opportunity here at this time in the Catholic Church that is the process of synodality is being encouraged and promoted. It could be, how do we make it very relational? Shift from inviting to our ministry to building ministry together. And again, this culture of encounter. Planning with the people from the beginning. Practicing cultural humility, asking questions. Why, tell me more about this practice. Tell me more about why, what is your fear? What are you feeling uncomfortable to join this ministry? Avoid assumptions about culture, language, or immigration status. Create visible signs of welcome. And so not only bilingual materials, it does help. Sometimes some of us may be have enough language skills, English language skills, enough to talk, but perhaps not to read, or the other way. We are good at reading, but not enough to talk. And when we create these visuals, how are we promoting and encouraging saints and devotions that are particular for Latinos? Next, please. Partnership with Spanish-speaking parishes or missions or dioceses in order to contact where the Latinos are. One big resource for Latinos is the apostolic movements. Again, Cursillo, Charismatics, John 23rd, and at this point there are so many movements that there are schools of leadership among Latinos. Invite through relationships, not announcements. Personal invitations always works. Bilingual or orientation sessions, scheduling flexibility. Is creating a small family-friendly services or opportunities. Sometimes those large events may be threatening for some of us. Celebrating cultural feast days, and sharing stories of Latino volunteers who are already working in the ministry, or incarcerated individuals. The power of a story. So just some practical suggestions about how do we put in practice this living intercultural ministry per se. I know I just feel like I have rushed, but I know we have an hour, but I wanted to make sure just to give you an overview, an introduction of some ideas, some suggestions, some concepts to keep in mind as in your ministries, you try to live an intercultural ministry, engaging more Latinos in the ministry. So I'm going to stop now and leave Imelda.
Thank you, Sister Ruth. This was very enlightening. I invite everybody who has a question to enter that question in the chat, so we can Sister has the opportunity to answer those questions. Sister, I was very, very interested in your presentation as a Latina myself. I have worked many years with the Latino community in my parish before starting to work in the archdiocese. And one of the things that I have seen is one as a barrier is obviously the immigration status, unfortunately, and also the fear of people of entering uh, a prison or a jail because like you said, it's that's not for me, or um, I had a bad experience in the past with an authority and I really just don't want to be there anymore. So it resonated a lot. But my question for you right now is, for those who are not familiar with the term, can you please elaborate a little bit more about what cultural humility means?
Oh, cultural humility. Um, we judge everything through our cultural eyes. Let's put it that way. What is pretty, what is not pretty, what is a good meal, what is not a good meal. Because yeah, culture is in manifested in everything we do. And sometimes we don't even realize, because that's who we are. So culture, making a stop before, especially even trying to live be trying to live interculturally. Perhaps food is the is the easiest way to understand this. For instance, well, I think I'm at this point I'm in Peru, and I think some people there know Peru. Something as simple like if I were to tell you, one of the delicacies here in Peru is having and my mom, by the way, used to be a great cook with that, is having a guinea pig stew. I grew up with it. My cultural humility, or probably some of you, I cannot see you, some of you already made an expression, put eyes. Oh, that's a pet. uh, um, I'm aware of that now, but that would be stop before making a judgment. Oh my gosh, how could you dare to eat a pet or so on? And I cannot even try that. Tell me more about it. Like stop, and then because it's part of who we are. We're making judgments of everything through our cultural eyes. So I don't know if that helps. Cultural humility is I make a stop, tell me more about it. I might still not like the guinea pig stew, which is fine, but I am so glad that you enjoy it. Does that, yeah?
Thank you, sister. For the record, I also enjoy guinea pig. We have a couple of questions. Sandy is asking how to best conduct a bilingual service.
Bilingual services, that's it helps. You're doing English and Spanish. Not to be repeating. That's one, because it makes it longer. So it does, in those cases, it does help to have some written aids. So and you don't need whatever you have in English, you might have it translated into Spanish in the handout, or on the other way. But I always advise, oh yeah, we're going to have in English the reading, and then in Spanish again. Yeah, that makes the service longer, and all of you have time. Although time is always an issue. If you are giving a reflection orally, and of course you don't have it written, but the presenter, like in this, is bilingual, I always say, well, give a little in English, maybe put a thought so that people that speaks English are thinking, and then make it to Spanish, but perhaps make it yeah, both way, a little English, a little Spanish, a little English, a little Spanish, rather than a lot of English while I understand nothing, and then a chunk of Spanish. Just some practical suggestions, both when you have a chance to have a handout, or sometimes when it's spontaneously and the presenter, you need to go bilingually.
Thank you, sister. Another question we have is Is it your experience that it is best to have separate Catholic groups defined by culture or language, or try to integrate? And also, have you seen success with lay lead Hispanic programs as Spanish speaking priest deacons are very scarce?
Okay, let's start with the first one. My experience that it's best to have separate Catholic groups. As I said before, diversity is a gift but requires work. I'm not going to deny that. It will be easier to have two separate groups. Yeah, there's the Spanish, there's the English. And perhaps the ideal is in this stew is we may need to have times when it's true, we might need to have only the Spanish speaking group together for what it could be as simple, and I'll give you an example. When I am with a Spanish group, Latino group, I don't have to worry about if I am touching your arm or not. It could be as simple as that. Nobody's going to take it wrong, like I am, oh, hello. And at this time in my life, I can change from group. But if I'm in a more, let's say, European group, there's a switch. I'm comfortable, but I'm more aware that I'm not going to greet you with a kiss or with a hug. So it could be as simple as that. That perhaps we need times, especially just to be with, in this case, Latinos, and then in this case the larger group. But how? Let's look for opportunities. How do we get to know one another? Encounter this culture of encounter, because in that image of the stew, that's the only way that we find transformation. And there's always bilingual people. Language is not always the big obstacle for these encounters. We can be creative. Regarding to the second part, have you seen success with lay lead Hispanic programs? Yes, actually, the apostolic movements that I mentioned, the leaders are lay people. Uh, well, the leaders are lay people. Sometimes they're not even connected to any clergy and so on. So no, I have seen there will be other challenges of how do we engage them with, in this case, with the institution. That will be another workshop. But yes, I believe leadership with I've seen success. I mean, the apostolic movements is one way. In this vision, sometimes we might have this vision that we need diploma certificates, but perhaps sometimes some of us perhaps may not have the training. But how do we, in this vision of leadership, how do we offer the tools to, in other ways, to empower this Latino lay leadership? What do they need in order to be able to be successful leaders on their own? So it's true, in the spirit of subsidiarity, they might need some extra tools in order to be successful leaders. But I have seen it, both apostolic movements, and also have to say at diocesan levels.
Thank you, sister. Please don't be shy. Write your questions. One of the things that we do in our diocese here, one of our auxiliary bishops is very involved in prison ministry. He's bilingual, but he's very aware that even though that our diocese is over half of our diocese is Latino, comes from a Spanish-speaking country, there is a larger group of undocumented people, and so they are obviously not allowed in a facility. So we have come up with ideas of getting them involved in prison ministry, maybe through card writing events, or I have a wonderful example of a lady that she knows how to embroider things. So she embroidered an altar cloth that we can use inside a prison when the bishop comes say mass. So maybe there are other ways that Latinos can get involved in prison ministry. That doesn't require for them to go inside a prison.
I agree, and I think I mentioned it, the family of the person that is incarcerated. Also, yeah, like, that might be another way to support, the family of per se. I know my sister is here, she's in Peru, is involved for Christmas. Well, in coordination, of course, they organize for the children, for the families in order to have some kind of Christmas event or something.
We have
Uh,
says it is my experience that Hispanic prisoners will often feel as the outsiders within what's already an outsider or marginalized group, the prisoner population. I have found more success in meeting with Hispanic prisoners separately to account for this and for them to feel more free to share. Do you agree that this could be at least a part of the prison ministry to Hispanics?
good point, Jorge. And Yes, in that case, it's like a double segregation there. And the same issues that I have presented if people that are in prison, they feel already in the margins. So, in that case, and again, I'm not too sure, Jorge, if this ministry is in English or bilingual or in Spanish, and so on. That's wonderful that there will be number one space, and also somebody that can work with that group. Yes, I'm saying this because many years, not recently. I did visit in Philadelphia a prison, but at that time the whole group came together, Latinos and non-Latinos. But I also remember that yes, as you said, the Latino, I will speak. I'll have my little mini group within the larger group, just because in this case because of the language skills. But no, I think it's in that case, we need to meet the person in a space of where the person feels stronger, who feels confident. And I think when I said in an institution, sometimes um, we need to, this culture of encounter needs to happen from a position of strength. So a lot of work needs to be done in order that to encounter the other. So because often some cultural groups, yeah, we might already feel in the margin, even though the other person has said absolutely nothing about it. And the other question.
Is well, Mike has shared some resources. Says Jesuit
Oh,
Restorative
okay.
Justice Initiative has mass readings for the upcoming Sunday in English and Spanish. It's great to use in mixed services. We did readings in both languages. And then Jorge followed up and said, our prison ministry is primarily in English, but we make a point to adjust and have some things for Hispanics.
Yeah.
What While we have a few minutes for one more question, if somebody wants to ask something else and take advantage of having Sister Ruth with us. Um, one of the things we do in the prison, we do celebrate Our Lady of Guadalupe for everybody. So we have a couple of more questions. What is the proper response to someone you are interacting with in a parish that you find out is living in the US, not under asylum guidelines, etc.? Are we supposed to ignore the laws of the US and say do nothing, encourage the person to go through formal immigration, send to a priest, something else?
Oh, oh, a person that has, in other words, a person that has no
I think
documentation,
a person that is undocumented.
undocumented. Um, what are, what are we supposed to say? I guess in regard to uh, say the laws of God trumps the civil laws in the case of consider. And again, the first thing is get to and what's the story of the person. Perhaps the person is not even asking for an advice. The person is not asking for a solution. But sometimes, that leads me to accompaniment. Some of us are so quick. We want to give solutions, but perhaps in prison ministry, I mean, in ministry often, but especially in some circumstances of immigrations, I will focus on the accompaniment. How am I walking with that person, listening to that story, uh, and and especially when I don't have a solution to offer, but perhaps, and again, I don't know the story, but the person is the person even asking for my advice and a solution, or the person perhaps is just telling me the story. So in those cases that I understand, I've been there, is listening and then walking with the person in ministry.
We have another question here. In our prison ministry, we have about one quarter of a group of are only Spanish-speaking women. When we have reflection time, we have tried breaking up into two groups, one English speaking and another separate Spanish speaking group. It can be noisy. What do you recommend?
Uh, it can be noise, I guess, a space, right? And I assume it's because of the language. Yeah, that is.
I'm guessing maybe they don't have the ability to have separate rooms and they have
Mhm.
both
Yeah,
groups running at the same play. So that might be.
yeah. There's not much they can do, and perhaps talk about the issue together, or well, if like talk the issue with talk. Recognize the challenge. This is the idea will be, but we don't have the resources. So again, sometimes it's not. What can we do? Sometimes there's not much we can do, because I'm sure if there will be more space, probably you would have tried that. But perhaps sometimes it helps so much even recognizing the challenge. Here we are, but here we are. In the midst of this, what can we do? Perhaps speak little, not as loud and so on, but the truth is that it's uncomfortable. Uh, but here we are doing the best. But I will just say recognize. But I think it's a good idea. You need to separate groups, especially if there's a need for language, for Spanish speakers to speak, to share their faith in their own native language.
A very wise person told me once that it doesn't matter how proficient you are in your second language, you will always go back to your mother language to count, to pray, and to curse.
That is very true. I do maths still in Spanish.
True. We have one last question. It's Catholic materials are being suppressed in our prisons. Visits are great, but prisoners also appreciate letters and they are easy to write. Um, do you have any advice about reaching more people to write to prisoners?
Um, well, yes. I mean, the convent where I was, one sister really was so faithful writing to prisoners. It's amazing the impact in the lives of when both not only the prisoner but the sister in this case. She followed the story and so on, and she'll share not only with her, but then she'll share with us. Um, Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great way to invite others in ministry, especially those who perhaps may not be comfortable or may not be able to do in-person ministry. It's powerful.
And we have one final question. We just began a Hispanic jail ministry in our diocese. It has been difficult to find bilingual volunteers. What do you recommend we can do to promote the program across parishes and find more volunteers? We know that it's difficult now due to the focus on undocumented. Should we go to universities and visit the Newman centers as well?
Yes, I said, why not? Um, Parishes, I'm not sure this did it say diocese, but Um, apostolic movements is one. Check out who are the cursillistas, who are the uh, charismatics, and so on. Uh, that's a source of volunteers. And again, reaching out to parishes, if your parishes are like where the parishes I work with, everybody's overworked at a parish. Your pastor is overworked, the secretary is overworked, pastoral ministry. Sometimes your letter might just have stay on somebody's desk. So perhaps relational, visiting the masses, finding the leaders, and so on. Make it, it's more work. I get it, but it's go and find out who are the movers and shakers of that parish among the Latinos. And you're not going to find that through a bulletin announcement or through the priest mailing list. It's more work, but that's the way. Visit the parish, visit the group, visit the institution, visit the university.
Thank you, Sister Ruth. We would like to share now a few announcements. Sister Ruth will be joining us again for a follow-up conversation on July 21st, where we invite you to bring more conversation about your particular context, challenges, and ideas. Sign up for this community of practice gathering at the link in the chat. There will be no monthly learning services webinar in August as we wrap up summer activities, but we will pick up again in September with a series of webinars focused on our final subtheme of 2026, transformation. Watch for more information in your inbox. CPMC is excited to host 2 summer in-person retreats this summer, and we still have space in our Philadelphia retreat, inspired by Pope Leo XIV's papal motto, "In the One, we are one." We will hear from speakers who will lead us into Augustinian spirituality and into the ministerial approach of Pope Leo. Sign up today to renew your spirit and connect with ministers from across the country. And finally, when this webinar ends, you will be redirected to a short survey about today's event, or you can click the link now in the chat. Your feedback is an important tool to ensure we're meeting the needs of our community. We thank you for taking 2 minutes to share your thoughts. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Sister Ruth, for taking the time and to be with us today. We look forward to our next meeting and we wish you the best of times in Peru.